Good evening, brave travelers of America's most dangerous supernatural territories. Tonight, we venture into locations where supernatural activity transcends mere ghost sightings and unexplained sounds, entering territory where the supernatural has repeatedly caused injury, madness, and death to those unfortunate enough to encounter it. These are not stories of gentle spirits or nostalgic hauntings, but accounts of places where reality itself seems corrupted by forces we cannot fully understand. From cursed triangular zones where the laws of nature break down, to remote ranches where interdimensional beings prey upon the living, from forest circles where nothing will grow, to roads where phantom hitchhikers lure drivers to their doom, we'll explore 6 of America's most genuinely dangerous paranormal locations. What makes these places particularly terrifying is their consistency. These are not one-time supernatural events or isolated incidents, but ongoing phenomena that have claimed multiple victims over decades or even centuries. The supernatural forces at these locations demonstrate intelligence, malevolence, and an apparent desire to harm or kill human beings who enter their territory. Many of these locations have been investigated by scientists, law enforcement, and military personnel, all seeking rational explanations for phenomena that defy conventional understanding. Their findings often raise more questions than answers, suggesting that we share our world with forces and entities that operate according to rules we have yet to comprehend. These stories are documented through police reports, missing persons cases, unexplained deaths, and the testimony of survivors who barely escaped with their lives. They remind us that while curiosity about the paranormal is natural, some mysteries are too dangerous to investigate, and some places should be avoided by all who value their safety and sanity. Prepare yourself for an hour of America's most deadly supernatural encounters. Locations where the paranormal doesn't just frighten or mystify, but actively hunts, injures, and kills those who dare to enter its domain.
Story 1. The Bridgewater Triangle, Massachusetts Zone of Terror.
In southeastern Massachusetts, a roughly 200-square-mile area encompassing parts of Abington, Rehoboth, and Freetown has earned the ominous designation as the Bridgewater Triangle, a region where paranormal activity, unexplained disappearances, and encounters with cryptid creatures occur with such frequency that it has become one of America's most documented supernatural zones. This triangular area, roughly bordered by the towns of Abington, Freetown, and Rehoboth, has been the site of more reported paranormal phenomena than almost any comparable region in the United States. The Bridgewater Triangle was first identified and named by cryptozoologist Loren Coleman in the 1970s, though the area's reputation for supernatural activity extends back to the earliest Native American settlements. The indigenous Wampanoag people considered much of this territory to be cursed ground, particularly the Hockomock Swamp at the Triangle Center, which they called the place where spirits dwell. The Hockomock Swamp itself covers approximately 17,000 acres of wetlands, forests, and waterways that have resisted human development for centuries. The swamp's dark waters, dense vegetation, and maze-like geography create an atmosphere of primordial menace, and those who enter often report feeling watched by unseen presences and experiencing disorientation that makes navigation nearly impossible, even with modern GPS equipment. The supernatural phenomena within the Bridgewater Triangle are remarkably diverse, encompassing virtually every category of paranormal activity documented by researchers. This variety suggests that the area may serve as some kind of nexus or gateway where multiple types of supernatural forces converge, creating a concentrated zone of paranormal activity unlike anywhere else in America. UFO activity and alien encounters. The Bridgewater Triangle has been a hotspot for UFO sightings since the 1960s, with hundreds of credible witnesses reporting encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. These sightings range from distant lights performing impossible aerial maneuvers to close encounters where witnesses claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings. The most dramatic incident occurred in 1976, when multiple police officers from different jurisdictions reported pursuing a massive triangular craft that flew silently over Route 44, one of the main roads through the triangle. The craft was described as being larger than a commercial aircraft, covered in lights, and capable of hovering motionlessly before accelerating to impossible speeds without making any sound. UFO researchers have noted that the Bridgewater Triangle shares characteristics with other famous UFO hotspots around the world, including unusual electromagnetic readings, animal mutilations, and reports of missing time experienced by witnesses. Some investigators believe the area may serve as a portal or landing zone for extraterrestrial visitors, though the purpose of their interest in this particular region remains unclear. Cryptid creatures and unknown animals. The Bridgewater Triangle is home to an astonishing variety of cryptid sightings, including creatures that seem to defy biological classification. Witnesses have reported encounters with Bigfoot-like creatures standing over 7 feet tall and covered in dark hair. Massive black panthers that shouldn't exist in Massachusetts' ecosystem. Giant snakes far larger than any native species, and thunderbirds, enormous flying creatures resembling prehistoric pterodactyls with wingspans exceeding 20 feet. One of the most terrifying cryptids associated with the triangle is the Pukwudgie, a creature from Wampanoag mythology described as a 2 to 3 foot tall humanoid with gray skin, large ears, and a distinctly malevolent disposition. According to both Native American legends and modern witnesses, Pukwudgies are capable of shape-shifting, creating fire, shooting poisoned arrows, and luring humans to their deaths through various means of deception. Multiple hikers and campers in the Freetown Fall River State Forest have reported encounters with Pukwudgies, describing attacks by small humanoid creatures that threw rocks, shot what felt like darts or arrows, and attempted to push victims off cliffs or into bodies of water. Several unexplained deaths and disappearances in the state forest have been attributed by some researchers to Pukwudgie attacks, though official causes of death are typically listed as accidents or exposure. The Freetown Fall River State Forest. This 5,441-acre state forest sits at the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle and has earned a reputation as one of the most dangerous paranormal locations in New England. The forest has been the site of numerous cult activities, ritual murders, animal sacrifices, and unexplained deaths that have created an atmosphere of accumulated evil that seems to attract additional paranormal activity. In the 1970s and 1980s, the forest became a favorite location for satanic cult activities, with investigators discovering evidence of ritual sites, animal sacrifices, and symbols associated with dark occult practices. While law enforcement successfully prosecuted several individuals involved in these activities, many believed that the rituals performed in the forest opened doorways to malevolent supernatural forces that continue to operate in the area. Hikers in the Freetown Fall River State Forest consistently report feelings of overwhelming dread, being followed by unseen presences, hearing voices calling their names from deep within the woods, and experiencing sudden temperature drops and unexplained equipment malfunctions. Numerous visitors have become lost despite having maps and GPS devices, wandering in circles for hours before eventually finding their way out, often miles from where they intended to be. The forest has also been the site of multiple suicides and murders, including several cases where victims were found in remote areas under circumstances that suggested they had been led or driven to their deaths by unknown forces. Some investigators believe the forest itself exerts a malevolent influence on human psychology, amplifying negative emotions and suicidal thoughts in those who spend extended time within its boundaries. Profile rock and mysterious lights. Profile rock is a 50-foot-high granite cliff overlooking Ledge Road in Freetown, featuring a natural formation that resembles a human face when viewed from certain angles. The Wampanoag believed this rock to be the face of Chief Massasoit and considered it a sacred site where the boundary between the physical and spirit worlds was particularly thin. The area around Profile Rock has been a focal point for paranormal activity, with witnesses reporting mysterious lights that appear to dance and move with apparent intelligence. These lights, similar to the famous Marfa lights in Texas, have been observed by hundreds of witnesses over the decades, including police officers and other credible observers. The lights appear as glowing orbs ranging in color from white to red to green, floating through the forest at varying heights and speeds. Unlike conventional light sources, these orbs can pass through solid objects, disappear and reappear instantaneously, and seem to respond to human presence by approaching or fleeing from observers. Some witnesses who have attempted to approach or follow the lights have reported disorientation, missing time, and physical symptoms including headaches, nausea, and temporary paralysis. Several people who encountered the lights have required medical attention for unexplained burns, radiation-like exposure symptoms, and psychological trauma. The Bridgewater Triangle's deadly roads. Several roads that pass through or near the triangle have earned reputations for unexplained accidents, phantom hitchhikers, and supernatural encounters that have resulted in injuries and deaths. Route 44, which cuts through the heart of the triangle, has been the site of numerous fatal accidents that witnesses attribute to supernatural causes. Drivers on these roads report seeing apparitions that suddenly appear in front of their vehicles, causing them to swerve and crash. Others describe their vehicles being struck by invisible forces, having their steering wheels wrenched from their hands by unseen entities, or experiencing complete electrical failure that leaves them stranded in dangerous locations. The phantom hitchhiker phenomenon is particularly prevalent along roads through the triangle. Drivers report picking up hitchhikers who provide specific destinations, engage in normal conversation, and then suddenly vanish from the moving vehicle. In some cases, drivers have later discovered that the person they picked up matched the description of someone who died in the area years or decades earlier. Disappearances and unsolved deaths. The Bridgewater Triangle has been associated with numerous disappearances and unexplained deaths over the decades. Some victims are eventually found dead under mysterious circumstances that defy rational explanation, while others vanish completely, leaving no trace despite extensive searches by law enforcement and volunteers. In several cases, victims' bodies have been found in locations that had been thoroughly searched multiple times, suggesting that they were either hidden by intelligent forces and then revealed, or that they somehow appeared in these locations after the searches were completed. Medical examiners have noted unusual injuries and physiological changes in some victims that cannot be explained through conventional forensic analysis. The pattern of disappearances suggests that certain individuals may be specifically targeted by the supernatural forces within the triangle. Victims often share characteristics such as being alone, visiting the area at night, or having some previous connection to paranormal investigation or occult activities. Scientific investigations and ongoing research. The Bridgewater Triangle has attracted serious scientific attention from researchers seeking to understand the mechanisms behind its concentrated paranormal activity. Geologists have noted unusual magnetic anomalies in the area that could potentially affect human psychology and navigation equipment. The region sits at the intersection of several geological fault lines, and some researchers speculate that electromagnetic fields generated by tectonic stress might contribute to the reported phenomena. However, the sheer variety and consistency of paranormal reports from the Bridgewater Triangle suggests that geological factors alone cannot explain the experiences of hundreds of credible witnesses over multiple decades. The area appears to represent a genuine anomaly, a place where the normal rules of reality seem suspended, and where multiple types of supernatural phenomena converge. Modern warnings and continuing danger. Today, the Bridgewater Triangle continues to claim victims, with disappearances, unexplained deaths, and supernatural encounters occurring regularly within its boundaries. Law enforcement agencies in the affected communities maintain detailed records of unusual incidents, though official explanations typically avoid references to paranormal causes. Paranormal researchers who study the triangle recommend extreme caution for anyone considering visiting the area, particularly the Freetown Fall River State Forest and the Hockomock Swamp. Those who do venture into these locations are advised to travel in groups, maintain constant communication with people outside the area, carry GPS tracking devices, and leave immediately if they experience feelings of dread, disorientation, or encounter any unexplained phenomena. The Bridgewater Triangle stands as one of America's most dangerous paranormal zones, a place where multiple types of supernatural forces operate simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of deadly phenomena that has claimed numerous victims and continues to threaten anyone who enters its cursed boundaries.
It serves as a stark reminder that some places on Earth seem to exist at the intersection of multiple realities, where the barriers between worlds grow thin and forces from beyond our understanding can reach through to affect and harm the living. Story 2. Skinwalker Ranch, Utah's interdimensional nightmare. In the remote Uinta Basin of northeastern Utah, surrounded by rugged desert terrain and ancient Native American territories, lies a 512-acre property that has become synonymous with some of the most bizarre, terrifying, and well-documented paranormal phenomena in American history. Skinwalker Ranch, also known as Sherman Ranch, has been the site of supernatural encounters so extreme and varied that it has attracted the attention of billionaire investors, government agencies, and scientific researchers seeking to understand phenomena that seem to defy the laws of physics and biology. The property derives its name from the Navajo legend of the Skinwalker, a malevolent witch capable of transforming into various animal forms and using supernatural powers to harm, kill, or manipulate human beings. According to Native American traditions, skinwalkers are former medicine men who have chosen to use their spiritual knowledge for evil purposes, gaining the ability to shapeshift by wearing the pelts of animals and performing forbidden rituals. The Ute tribe, whose traditional territory includes the Uinta Basin, has long considered the land where the ranch sits to be cursed. Tribal elders speak of an ancient pathway used by skinwalkers to travel between worlds, and they traditionally avoided the area, warning their children that terrible things happened to those who ventured onto the cursed land. This indigenous knowledge would prove prophetic for the modern families and researchers who would later occupy the property. The Sherman family nightmare. The ranch's modern infamy began in 1994 when Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the property, hoping to establish a successful cattle operation in the picturesque Utah countryside. The Shermans were practical ranching people with no particular interest in the paranormal, which makes their subsequent experiences all the more credible and disturbing. The paranormal activity began on the very day the Sherman family moved on to the property. As they were unloading their belongings, they encountered an enormous wolf that approached them with unnatural boldness. The wolf, which Terry Sherman estimated weighed at least 200 pounds, far larger than any normal wolf, allowed the family to approach within a few feet before calmly grabbing a young calf through the corral fence and attempting to drag it away. Terry Sherman and his father attacked the wolf with wooden posts, beating it repeatedly with blows that should have killed or severely injured any normal animal. The wolf simply released the calf, walked a short distance away, and sat down, apparently unharmed by the assault. When Terry retrieved his rifle and shot the wolf multiple times at close range, the animal merely trotted off into the underbrush, leaving no blood trail, despite being hit with rounds that should have been immediately fatal. This encounter set the pattern for 2 years of increasingly bizarre and terrifying experiences that would eventually drive the Sherman family from their property in fear for their lives. The phenomena they experienced defied every category of known paranormal activity, suggesting that the ranch was home to forces that operated according to rules entirely foreign to human understanding. Cattle mutilations and unexplained animal deaths. Within months of moving to the property, the Shermans began losing cattle to mysterious mutilations that bore the hallmark characteristics associated with the cattle mutilation phenomenon that has baffled ranchers and law enforcement across the American West for decades. However, the mutilations at Skinwalker Ranch displayed features that were even more disturbing than typical cases. Cattle would disappear from locked and secured pens, only to be found days later in impossible locations, such as the tops of trees, with organs removed through surgical precision incisions that showed no sign of tool marks or bleeding. The removed organs, including eyes, udders, and reproductive organs, were never found, despite thorough searches of the surrounding area. Most disturbing were the mutilations that occurred while family members were present on the property. In several cases, family members heard cattle bellowing in distress, rushed to investigate, and found animals mutilated in ways that should have required hours to accomplish, yet had occurred within minutes. The speed and precision of these mutilations suggested technology or abilities far beyond conventional understanding. The Shermans lost 14 head of cattle to these mysterious mutilations during their tenure on the property, representing a devastating financial loss that was compounded by the psychological trauma of witnessing these incomprehensible acts of violence against their animals. Unidentified flying objects and aerial phenomena. The skies above Skinwalker Ranch became a stage for some of the most dramatic UFO encounters ever documented in America. The Sherman family and their neighbors witnessed unusual aerial phenomena on a nearly nightly basis, including craft that demonstrated flight characteristics that seemed to violate the known laws of physics. The objects ranged from small orbs of light that would hover near the family's home to massive craft described as big as multiple football fields that would appear silently above the property. These craft demonstrated the ability to accelerate instantaneously from a hovering position to speeds that would create visible sonic booms, yet made no sound whatsoever. Most unsettling were the craft that seemed to emerge from or disappear into what witnesses described as portals or tears in the sky, luminous openings in the air through which solid objects would pass, suggesting the presence of doorways to other dimensions or locations. These portals would appear as circular or oval distortions in the air, often surrounded by unusual light patterns, and objects entering them would vanish completely rather than simply flying away. The UFO activity at the ranch wasn't limited to distant observations. On multiple occasions, the craft approached witnesses at close range, bathing them in unusual lights that caused physical symptoms, including temporary paralysis, severe headaches, nausea, and lingering health problems that required medical attention. Some witnesses reported periods of missing time associated with these close encounters, suggesting possible abduction scenarios that they couldn't fully recall. Cryptid creatures and impossible animals. The ranch became home to encounters with creatures that seemed to blend characteristics of multiple species or demonstrated abilities that no known animal possesses. Beyond the bullet-resistant wolf that greeted the Sherman family on their first day, witnesses reported seeing creatures that defied biological classification. These included massive humanoid figures, over 7 feet tall, that walked upright through the property at night. Creatures resembling prehistoric dinosaurs or pterosaurs that flew over the ranch with wingspans exceeding 30 feet. And animals that appeared to be normal cattle or dogs until they demonstrated impossible abilities, such as disappearing into thin air or exhibiting intelligence far beyond normal animal capacity. One particularly disturbing encounter involved a creature that the family described as a hyena-like animal that appeared outside their home and seemed to study them with obvious intelligence. When Terry Sherman attempted to approach the creature, it literally vanished before his eyes, not running away, but simply ceasing to exist in that location. The Ute tradition of skinwalkers seemed increasingly relevant as the family experienced multiple encounters with animals that didn't behave according to normal biological rules. Some researchers speculate that the legendary skinwalkers may have been early attempts by Native Americans to describe encounters with these anomalous creatures that continue to manifest on the property.
Poltergeist activity and physical manifestations. Inside the Sherman family home, the supernatural activity took on characteristics of extreme poltergeist phenomena. Objects would disappear and reappear in impossible locations. Heavy furniture would move across rooms when no one was present, and voices would call family members' names in perfect imitation of loved ones' voices. The family's personal belongings seemed to be specifically targeted by the invisible forces, with items of emotional significance being hidden, destroyed, or manifested in locations that seemed designed to cause maximum psychological distress. Family photographs would be found burned or torn. Personal jewelry would vanish, only to reappear weeks later in locations that had been thoroughly searched. And the family's telephone would receive calls from disconnected numbers or generate conversations between dead relatives. Most terrifying were the physical attacks on family members. Gwen Sherman was frequently awakened by the sensation of being watched, only to see shadowy figures standing at the foot of her bed or dark masses moving through the walls of her bedroom. The family's children reported being touched by invisible hands, having their hair pulled during the night, and hearing threatening voices that warned them to leave the property. Scientific investigation and the NIDES study. The Sherman family's experiences attracted the attention of Robert Bigelow, a wealthy Las Vegas businessman with a serious interest in paranormal phenomena. In 1996, Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDES, purchased the property from the traumatized Sherman family and began what would become one of the most extensive scientific investigations of paranormal activity ever conducted. NIDES assembled a team of PhD-level scientists, including physicists, biologists, and engineers, and equipped the property with state-of-the-art monitoring equipment, including video cameras, motion sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, and radiation monitors. The team spent years studying the phenomena at the ranch, documenting incidents that challenged their scientific worldview, and publishing their findings in peer-reviewed journals. The NIDES investigation confirmed that extraordinary phenomena were occurring at the ranch, but also discovered that the activity seemed to demonstrate intelligence and intentionality. The phenomena would occur most frequently when fewer people were present to witness and document them, suggesting that whatever forces operated at the ranch were capable of detecting observation and altering their behavior accordingly. Scientists on the team reported experiencing the phenomena firsthand, including sightings of unusual craft, encounters with anomalous creatures, and equipment malfunctions that occurred in patterns suggesting intelligent sabotage. Several team members suffered lasting psychological effects from their time at the ranch, and at least one researcher required extended psychological counseling after experiencing events that shattered his materialist worldview. Government interest and ongoing research. The phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch have attracted official government interest at the highest levels. In 2007, it was revealed that the Defense Intelligence Agency had funded research at the ranch as part of the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Applications Program, AAWSAP, a secret Pentagon project investigating UFOs and related phenomena. The government's interest in the ranch reflects concern that the phenomena occurring there might represent advanced technology from foreign adversaries, extraterrestrial civilizations, or interdimensional entities. The program's researchers concluded that the ranch displayed characteristics suggesting it might be some form of portal or window area where the barriers between dimensions become permeable. In 2016, the property was sold to Adamantium Real Estate, a company with connections to billionaire Brandon Fugel. The new ownership has continued scientific investigation of the property while implementing enhanced security measures and more sophisticated monitoring equipment. Their ongoing research has been documented in the History Channel series The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, which has brought public attention to the continuing phenomena. Theories and explanations. Researchers have proposed numerous theories to explain the diverse phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch, ranging from electromagnetic anomalies caused by underground geological formations to the presence of wormholes or portals connecting our dimension to parallel universes. Some investigators believe the ranch sits at a location where multiple ley lines converge, creating a focal point for supernatural energy. The most disturbing theory suggests that the ranch may be home to entities from another dimension or reality that use the location as an observation post or experimental station for studying human beings. According to this hypothesis, the varied phenomena, UFOs, cryptid creatures, poltergeist activity, and animal mutilations may all be manifestations of the same intelligence, using different forms to interact with our reality. Indigenous spiritual leaders from nearby tribes maintain that the land has always been cursed, and that the spirits and entities that inhabit it have been there far longer than human civilization. They warn that attempting to study or understand these forces may anger them and lead to even more dangerous manifestations. Present-day dangers. Today, Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the most dangerous paranormal locations in America. The property is now closed to the public and protected by sophisticated security systems. But the phenomena continue unabated. Researchers working on the property must sign extensive liability waivers and receive briefings on safety protocols for dealing with potentially dangerous supernatural encounters. The ongoing research has documented continuing activity, including UFO sightings, unusual electromagnetic readings, radiation spikes, and encounters with anomalous animals and humanoid figures. Several researchers have suffered injuries or health problems attributed to their work on the property, including unexplained radiation exposure, psychological trauma, and chronic illnesses that developed after extended time at the ranch. Skinwalker Ranch stands perhaps as America's most comprehensively documented paranormal location, where phenomena that were once considered the realm of folklore and superstition have been witnessed, recorded, and verified by credentialed scientists using sophisticated equipment. The ranch represents a genuine mystery that challenges our understanding of reality itself, suggesting that our universe may be far stranger and more dangerous than mainstream science currently acknowledges. The location serves as a stark warning that some places on Earth seem to exist at the intersection of multiple realities, where beings and forces from beyond our dimension can manifest in our physical world. Those who venture onto the property risk not just encountering the unexplained, but being permanently changed by experiences that shatter conventional understanding of what is possible and impossible in our universe.
Story 3. The Devil's Tramping Ground, North Carolina's Cursed Circle. Deep in the forests of Chatham County, North Carolina, approximately 10 miles west of the town of Siler City, lies a mysterious circular clearing that has baffled scientists, terrified locals, and earned a reputation as one of America's most genuinely cursed locations. The Devil's Tramping Ground, as it has been known for over 2 centuries, is a perfect circle, approximately 40 feet in diameter, where nothing will grow and where animals refuse to enter. A barren patch of earth in the middle of an otherwise lush forest that seems to defy every natural law. The clearing's name comes from local folklore that claims the devil himself visits this spot every night to pace in circles while plotting evil schemes against humanity. According to legend, the repeated passage of the devil's cloven hooves has scorched the earth so thoroughly that nothing natural can take root there, and any object left within the circle overnight will be thrown out by morning, cast aside by the Prince of Darkness during his nocturnal perambulations. The site has been known to European settlers since at least the early 1800s, though Native American tribes in the region had long avoided the area, considering it cursed ground where malevolent spirits gathered. The Sora people, who originally inhabited the region, had traditions warning against entering the circular clearing, especially after sunset, believing that those who did so risked being claimed by evil forces that dwelt there. The barren circle and scientific mysteries. The most immediately striking aspect of the Devil's Tramping Ground is the complete absence of vegetation within the circular clearing, while the surrounding forest teems with plant life, including mature trees, dense undergrowth, and seasonal wildflowers. The circle itself remains completely barren, a patch of packed, sterile soil that looks as if it has been deliberately cleared and maintained, though no human agency has been documented as responsible for its upkeep. Scientists who have studied the site have been unable to provide a satisfactory explanation for the circle's persistent barrenness. Soil samples taken from within the circle show chemical composition similar to the surrounding fertile forest soil, with no obvious contamination or deficiency that would prevent plant growth. The soil pH is normal, mineral content is adequate, and there are no detectable toxins that would explain why plants refuse to grow there. Attempts to deliberately plant vegetation within the circle have universally failed. Numerous individuals over the decades have transplanted mature plants, scattered seeds, and even laid sod within the circle, always with the same result. The plants die within days, their roots seeming to shrivel and rot despite adequate water and sunlight. Even the hardiest weeds that can grow in parking lot cracks and industrial wastelands cannot gain a foothold in the Devil's Tramping Ground. Some researchers have theorized that the circle might sit atop a buried source of electromagnetic radiation or toxic minerals that prevents plant growth, but ground-penetrating radar and deep soil borings have revealed nothing unusual beneath the surface. The circle appears to be barren for reasons that science cannot currently explain, lending credence to the supernatural explanations that locals have offered for generations. Objects cast from the circle. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at the Devil's Tramping Ground is the mysterious displacement of objects left within the circle. Countless witnesses over the years have placed items, rocks, sticks, camping equipment, recording devices, in the center of the clearing, marking their exact positions only to return the next morning to find the objects thrown well outside the circle's boundaries. These displacements occur regardless of the weight or size of the objects. Small stones and large logs are treated equally, both being expelled from the circle during the night hours. Objects that are buried in the soil within the circle are somehow unearthed and thrown out, suggesting that whatever force operates there is capable of moving earth as well as surface objects. Skeptics initially suggested that pranksters or curious locals might be responsible for moving the objects, but the phenomena continues even during periods when the site is under continuous video surveillance. Cameras set up to monitor the circle have documented objects moving by themselves during the night, sometimes being thrown violently from the circle as if propelled by powerful invisible hands. Even more unsettling, the cameras themselves often malfunction when recording the circle at night. Batteries drain impossibly quickly, memory cards become corrupted, and expensive equipment stops functioning altogether, only to resume normal operation once removed from the vicinity of the clearing. This pattern of equipment failure has been documented by numerous research teams and amateur investigators, suggesting that whatever force inhabits the circle actively resists documentation. Animal behavior and instinctive avoidance. Perhaps the most telling evidence of genuine supernatural malevolence at the Devil's Tramping Ground is the behavior of animals in the area. Domestic animals, including dogs and horses, demonstrate extreme reluctance to enter the clearing, often whimpering, trembling, and attempting to flee when brought near the circle's edge. Even wild animals, which normally show no fear of open spaces and forests, avoid the clearing completely. Trail cameras positioned around the circle show countless animals, deer, foxes, raccoons, even small rodents, that approach the circle but stop abruptly at its boundary, sometimes sniffing the air as if detecting something dangerous, before deliberately choosing to go around the clearing rather than passing through it. Birds that fly over the clearing have been observed suddenly changing direction in mid-flight, as if encountering an invisible barrier or sensing danger from below. The trees surrounding the circle show no signs of bird nests or roosting activity in their branches that overhang the clearing, suggesting that even birds instinctively avoid spending time directly above the cursed ground. Local hunters have reported that game trails in the area all detour around the Devil's Tramping Ground, following routes that seem deliberately calculated to avoid the clearing even when more direct paths through it would save considerable distance. This behavior has been consistent for as long as hunters have worked in the area, suggesting that the avoidance is instinctive rather than learned. Human encounters and psychological effects. People who spend time in or near the Devil's Tramping Ground consistently report profound psychological and physical effects that seem to intensify the longer they remain in the area. Visitors describe feelings of overwhelming dread, the sensation of being watched by hostile, invisible presences, and compulsions to leave the area immediately. These psychological effects are particularly intense after sunset. Numerous individuals who have attempted to camp overnight in or near the circle have fled before morning, reporting encounters with unexplained phenomena that terrified them beyond their ability to remain. Those who have managed to stay through the night describe the experience as one of the most frightening of their lives. Common experiences reported by overnight visitors include hearing footsteps circling the perimeter of the clearing, as if something is pacing around and around the circle throughout the night. The footsteps sound heavy, deliberate, and malevolent, sometimes appearing to be made by something walking on two legs, other times by something with more legs or of a different configuration altogether.
Voices speaking in unknown languages, sometimes sounding human, but other times possessing qualities that suggest inhuman vocal structures. These voices have been recorded on audio equipment and analyzed by linguists who cannot identify the language or even confirm that the sounds conform to human speech patterns. Apparitions of shadowy figures moving through the trees surrounding the clearing, sometimes appearing humanoid, but often possessing characteristics such as unusual heights, disproportionate limbs, or glowing eyes that suggest non-human entities. These figures are typically seen in peripheral vision and disappear when directly observed, though some witnesses report clear sightings of entities that they cannot rationally explain. Physical sensations, including sudden temperature drops that can cause visible breath even on warm nights, feelings of being touched by invisible hands, and sensations of pressure on the chest that makes breathing difficult. Some visitors have reported being physically pushed or struck by forces they could not see, occasionally resulting in bruises or scratches that require medical attention. Historical incidents and documented dangers. The Devil's Tramping Ground has been associated with numerous disappearances, unexplained deaths, and incidents of severe psychological disturbance over its documented history. While official records rarely attribute these events to supernatural causes, the pattern suggests that the location poses genuine dangers to those who spend extended time there. In the 1950s, a local man who boasted that he would spend a night in the circle to prove it wasn't haunted was found the next morning wandering several miles away in a state of complete psychological breakdown. He was unable to coherently describe what had happened to him and spent several weeks in psychiatric care before partially recovering. Even after treatment, he refused to ever discuss his experience in the circle and would become visibly distressed if asked about it. During the 1970s, a group of college students conducting a paranormal investigation at the site fled in terror during the night, leaving behind expensive equipment and personal belongings in their panic to escape. When they returned in daylight to retrieve their property, they found it scattered over a wide area, with some items damaged beyond repair. The students refused to discuss details of what they had experienced, but stated publicly that they would never return to the location. More recently, several individuals who visited the Devil's Tramping Ground have reported developing chronic health problems following their visits, including persistent headaches, sleep disturbances, and unexplained anxiety that required professional medical treatment. While direct causation cannot be definitively established, the timing and consistency of these reports suggest that proximity to the circle may have lasting negative effects on human health and well-being. Scientific theories and supernatural explanations. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed to explain the devil's tramping ground, ranging from mundane to supernatural. Skeptics have suggested that the circle might be the remnant of an old homestead where toxic chemicals were stored, or that underground salt deposits might prevent plant growth. However, these theories have been repeatedly disproven by soil analysis and historical research. Some geologists have proposed that the circle might sit atop an underground cave or cavern that emits gases preventing plant growth. But ground-penetrating radar has revealed no such caverns beneath the site. Others have suggested that unusual electromagnetic fields might be responsible for both the barren ground and the psychological effects on visitors. But measurements have shown no significant electromagnetic anomalies. Paranormal researchers favor supernatural explanations, with theories ranging from the site being a portal to another dimension, to it being cursed by Native American shamans, to the traditional explanation that Satan himself does indeed visit the location. Some investigators believe the circle might mark the location of a powerful spiritual vortex where negative energy concentrates, creating conditions hostile to life. The most disturbing theory suggests that the devil's tramping ground might be a feeding ground for malevolent entities that draws sustenance from human fear and suffering. According to this hypothesis, the entities deliberately create frightening phenomena to generate the emotional energy they need to manifest in our physical reality, making anyone who visits the circle a potential victim of supernatural predation. Modern accessibility and continuing phenomena. Today, the Devil's Tramping Ground remains accessible to the public, though its exact location is somewhat obscured by the dense forest and the deliberate vagueness of directions provided by locals who hope to discourage visitors from endangering themselves. Those who do find the site are typically warned by nearby residents to visit only during daylight hours and to avoid lingering in or near the circle. Despite these warnings, the location continues to attract paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and skeptics hoping to debunk the legends. The vast majority of visitors report experiencing at least some of the psychological effects associated with the site, and a significant percentage experience phenomena dramatic enough to convince them that genuine supernatural forces are at work. Local law enforcement occasionally receives calls about disturbances at the Devil's Tramping Ground, typically involving visitors who became frightened and fled the area, sometimes leaving vehicles and possessions behind in their panic. Officers who respond to these calls confirm that something about the location makes even experienced law enforcement professionals uncomfortable, and most avoid visiting the site after dark. The circle itself remains as barren as ever, and the phenomena associated with it show no signs of diminishing despite the passage of time. Objects continue to be expelled from the circle overnight, animals continue to avoid it, and visitors continue to report encounters with phenomena that defy rational explanation. The Devil's Tramping Ground stands as one of America's most accessible yet genuinely dangerous paranormal location, a place where supernatural forces operate openly and consistently, where the normal rules of nature seem suspended, and where human visitors risk psychological trauma or worse by entering cursed ground that has earned its infernal reputation through 2 centuries of documented malevolent activity.
Story 4: Zombie Road, Missouri's Highway of Death. In the dense forests of Wildwood, Missouri, just west of St. Louis, runs a narrow, winding stretch of asphalt, officially known as Lawler Ford Road, but universally referred to by locals as Zombie Road. This 2-mile stretch of crumbling pavement has earned a reputation as one of America's most haunted and dangerous roads, where phantom hitchhikers, ghostly children, and malevolent spirits have caused numerous accidents, disappearances, and deaths over more than a century of documented supernatural activity. The road's ominous nickname derives not from the undead creatures of popular culture, but from a local legend about a man who supposedly lived along the road in the early 20th century. According to the story, this reclusive individual had skin covered in lesions and wounds that gave him a zombie-like appearance, and he would attack travelers who ventured down the isolated road after dark. Whether this figure was real or legendary remains unclear, but his story established the road's reputation for danger that subsequent events would repeatedly confirm. The area through which Zombie Road passes has a dark history stretching back to the Civil War era. During the 1860s, this region of Missouri was bitterly contested between Union and Confederate forces, with numerous small battles and guerrilla encounters occurring in the forests surrounding the road. Many soldiers died in these skirmishes and were buried in unmarked graves throughout the area, their bodies never recovered by their families, and their deaths never officially recorded. The road itself was constructed in the late 1800s to provide access to the Merrimack River and to connect several small communities that have since been abandoned. The route passes through territory that was once home to Native American settlements, industrial sites, including a now defunct railroad tunnel, and several locations where violent deaths occurred during the region's turbulent history.
The railroad tunnel and its victims. At the heart of Zombie Road's supernatural activity stands an abandoned railroad tunnel that was built in the 1850s to allow trains to pass through the bluffs overlooking the Merrimack River. The tunnel, approximately 100 feet long and carved through solid rock, became the scene of numerous tragedies during its operational period. Several workers died during the tunnel's construction, crushed by falling rock or killed in explosions used to blast through the stone. These men were buried near the construction site, their graves long since lost to time and overgrowth. Local legend claims their spirits remain trapped in the area, eternally working to complete the tunnel that claimed their lives. After the tunnel's completion, it became the site of additional deaths.
In 1876, a woman named Della Hamilton McCullough was struck and killed by a train while crossing the tracks near the tunnel entrance. Her ghost, known as the Woman in White, has been seen countless times over the decades, walking along the tracks and reportedly warning visitors to flee before they too are killed. The tunnel itself exerts a malevolent influence on those who enter it. Visitors consistently report feelings of extreme dread, difficulty breathing, and the sensation of invisible hands pushing them toward the tracks where oncoming trains would have struck them. Numerous people have fled the tunnel in terror, reporting that they heard the sound of an approaching train and felt vibrations in the rails, despite the tracks having been abandoned and removed decades ago. Phantom hitchhikers and deadly encounters. Zombie Road has become notorious for encounters with phantom hitchhikers, apparitions that appear as solid, living people who flag down drivers seeking rides only to vanish from moving vehicles or reveal their supernatural nature in ways that cause accidents and injuries. The most frequently reported phantom is a young woman in 1950s-era clothing who appears to be walking along the road late at night. Drivers who stop to offer assistance report that she provides a specific address in a nearby town and engages in normal conversation while riding in the vehicle. When the driver reaches the destination or looks away momentarily, the woman vanishes completely, leaving no trace of her presence except for a profound chill in the vehicle and the driver's shattered nerves. Some drivers have attempted to research the addresses provided by the phantom hitchhiker, discovering that they correspond to locations where young women died in accidents or were murdered decades earlier. These tragic deaths seem to have bound the victims' spirits to Zombie Road, forcing them to eternally repeat their final attempts to return home. More sinister are reports of male phantoms who appear aggressive and threaten drivers who pick them up. These entities have been known to grab steering wheels, attempt to choke drivers, or create terrifying apparitions that cause drivers to crash. Several serious accidents along Zombie Road have been attributed by survivors to encounters with these malevolent hitchhiking spirits.
The children's spirits and shadow people. Among the most heartbreaking supernatural phenomena on Zombie Road are the frequent encounters with the ghosts of children who died in the area under tragic circumstances. These child spirits appear most commonly near locations where a school bus accident occurred in the 1950s, claiming the lives of several young students. Witnesses report seeing groups of children in old-fashioned clothing playing along the roadside, appearing completely solid until approached, when they fade away and vanish instantly. Some drivers have reported nearly hitting children who suddenly appeared in the road, swerving violently to avoid them, only to discover, upon stopping, that no children were present. The child spirits seem to seek attention from adult visitors, with some witnesses reporting that they've heard children's voices calling for help or seen small handprints appear on vehicle windows. Unlike many of the road's other spirits, the children don't appear malevolent, but their sudden appearances have nonetheless caused accidents, as drivers react instinctively to avoid hitting what appear to be living children in the road. More disturbing are reports of shadow people, tall, dark, humanoid figures that appear to be composed of absolute darkness and that move with unnatural speed and fluidity. These entities have been seen throughout Zombie Road, but concentrate near the railroad tunnel and around several locations where violent deaths occurred. The shadow people appeared to be predatory, pursuing visitors who enter the area after dark and causing intense feelings of terror in those who encounter them. Multiple witnesses report being followed by these shadow figures, which seem to feed on fear and become more aggressive as their victims' terror increases. Several people have reported being physically touched or pushed by shadow people, experiencing sensations of icy cold and sometimes bearing scratch marks or bruises after their encounters. Unexplained accidents and missing persons. Zombie Road has an accident rate that far exceeds what would be expected for a lightly traveled rural road. Drivers report experiencing sudden mechanical failures, being temporarily blinded by unexplained lights, or having their steering wheels suddenly wrenched from their hands by invisible forces. These incidents have resulted in numerous crashes, some fatal, that official reports attribute to driver error or mechanical failure, but that witnesses insist had supernatural causes. The area around Zombie Road has also been associated with several unsolved disappearances. People have vanished while hiking, biking, or driving along the road, with search efforts finding no trace of the missing individuals. Some victims are eventually found dead in locations that had been thoroughly searched, suggesting that their bodies appeared in those spots after the searches concluded. In several cases, missing persons have been found alive but suffering from complete amnesia regarding their disappearance, unable to account for hours or days of missing time. These individuals often display symptoms consistent with severe psychological trauma and sometimes bear injuries or marks that they cannot explain.
Medical professionals who have examined these victims note consistent patterns suggesting exposure to extreme fear and possibly physical assault by unknown assailants. Documented paranormal investigations. Zombie Road has been extensively investigated by paranormal research teams, with most documenting phenomena that support the witnesses' accounts of supernatural activity. Electronic voice phenomena recordings have captured numerous unexplained voices, including children calling for help, adults warning investigators to leave, and incomprehensible sounds that don't match any known language or natural source. Electromagnetic field detectors register massive spikes in specific locations along the road, particularly near the tunnel and at sites where violent deaths are known to have occurred. These readings suggest the presence of significant energy sources that cannot be explained through conventional means. Video and photographic evidence has captured numerous anomalies, including full-body apparitions, moving orbs of light, and shadow figures that appear solid enough to block background light sources. Some photographs show figures standing directly in the path of oncoming vehicles, suggesting that drivers who report swerving to avoid pedestrians may indeed be encountering supernatural entities rather than experiencing hallucinations. Thermal imaging equipment has recorded human-shaped heat signatures in areas where no living people are present, and audio equipment has captured the sounds of phantom trains approaching the tunnel, complete with warning whistles and the rumble of heavy locomotives on tracks that were removed decades ago. Modern dangers and law enforcement response. Today, Zombie Road remains accessible to the public, but is increasingly monitored by law enforcement due to both supernatural dangers and the risk posed by vandals and trespassers who visit the location seeking thrills. The road itself has deteriorated significantly, with crumbling pavement, washed-out sections, and areas where the forest is reclaiming the asphalt. Local police regularly patrol the area and have established a policy of escorting visitors off the property after dark, citing both the supernatural dangers and the risk of physical injury from the road's poor condition. Officers who work the area privately admit that they find Zombie Road deeply unsettling and prefer to conduct patrols before sunset whenever possible. Despite increased law enforcement presence, accidents and supernatural encounters continue to occur along Zombie Road. The spirits that haunt the area seem unaffected by human attempts to restrict access or explain away their manifestations, and the road maintains its reputation as one of Missouri's most dangerous paranormal locations. Several paranormal research organizations have classified Zombie Road as an active haunting site, where multiple types of spirits coexist, apparently drawn to the location by its history of death and tragedy. The concentration of supernatural activity suggests that the area may serve as a nexus, where the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead becomes permeable, allowing spirits to cross over and interact with our physical reality. The road's dark legacy. Zombie Road stands as a testament to how locations associated with repeated tragedy can become permanently haunted, attracting supernatural forces that pose genuine dangers to the living. The road's narrow, winding path through dense forest creates an atmosphere of isolation and vulnerability that seems to amplify paranormal activity, making it a perfect storm of supernatural malevolence. The variety and consistency of reported phenomena, phantom hitchhikers, child spirits, shadow people, and unexplained accidents suggest that multiple types of supernatural entities have claimed Zombie Road as their territory. Whether these spirits are the ghosts of actual people who died in the area, interdimensional beings, or manifestations of the accumulated negative energy from decades of death and suffering, remains unclear. What is certain is that Zombie Road represents genuine danger to those who venture onto it, particularly after dark. The road's supernatural inhabitants have repeatedly demonstrated their ability to cause physical harm, psychological trauma, and in some cases, death to visitors who underestimate the malevolent forces that call this cursed stretch of Missouri back road their home. Zombie Road serves as a warning that some places become so saturated with death and tragedy that they develop a kind of spiritual momentum, attracting additional supernatural activity and creating self-perpetuating cycles of paranormal danger that may never be broken. The road remains one of America's most actively haunted locations, where the past refuses to rest and where spirits of the dead continue to prey upon the living who dare to enter their domain.
Story 5. The 13 Bends Road. Curves of Death Across America. Across the United States, in locations separated by thousands of miles, yet sharing remarkably similar characteristics, exists a phenomenon that paranormal researchers have come to recognize as one of the most dangerous patterns in American supernatural geography. These roads, typically rural routes featuring exactly 13 sharp curves, have become legendary for causing fatal accidents, hosting encounters with phantom vehicles, and claiming lives with such regularity that they've earned the collective nickname 13 Bends Roads. While several roads across America claim the 13 Bends designation, they share common features that suggest either a disturbing coincidence or evidence of supernatural forces that operate according to patterns we don't fully understand.
Each of these roads features a series of sharp, dangerous curves, always numbering exactly 13, that wind through isolated areas where cell phone reception is poor or non-existent, and where help might be hours away for accident victims. The most famous 13 Bends Road runs through Hardin County, Texas, near the ghost town of Bragg. This narrow, winding road passes through dense forest, crosses several bridges over murky bayous, and features curves so sharp that they require extreme caution even during daylight hours. The road's reputation for supernatural danger has made it a pilgrimage site for ghost hunters and thrill seekers, though many who make the journey come to regret their decision. The pattern of 13 and its significance. The consistent appearance of exactly 13 curves in these legendary haunted roads has captured the attention of researchers studying both paranormal phenomena and the psychology of folklore. The number 13 has been associated with bad luck and supernatural evil across numerous cultures throughout history, and its repeated appearance in connection with these deadly roads suggests either deliberate human design or recognition of existing supernatural patterns. Some researchers theorize that roads featuring 13 curves were deliberately constructed with occult significance in mind, possibly by engineers who practiced dark magic or who sought to create pathways that would serve as conduits for supernatural energy. Others suggest that the number 13 appears coincidentally, and that human psychology creates associations between the unlucky number and the tragic events that occur on these roads. A more disturbing theory proposes that malevolent entities are drawn to locations where the number 13 appears in geographical features, recognizing these places as natural focal points for supernatural activity. According to this hypothesis, the 13 curves serve as a kind of spiritual circuit that channels and concentrates paranormal energy, creating conditions where the boundary between the living world and the spirit realm becomes dangerously thin. The phantom vehicles and deadly games. The most commonly reported supernatural phenomenon on 13 Bends roads involves encounters with phantom vehicles that appear suddenly on the winding curves, often causing deadly accidents as living drivers swerve to avoid collisions with cars that vanish before impact occurs. These phantom vehicles typically appear as older model cars or trucks with their headlights off, making them nearly invisible on dark, moonless nights. They approach from either ahead or behind, forcing drivers to make split-second decisions that often result in leaving the roadway, striking trees, or plunging off bridges into the water below. Survivors of these encounters describe the phantom vehicles as appearing completely solid and real until the moment of anticipated collision, when they simply vanish, leaving the living driver to crash into whatever obstacle they were trying to avoid. The disappearance is instantaneous rather than gradual, suggesting that these are not conventional ghosts, but something more complex, perhaps residual hauntings replaying fatal accidents from the past, or malevolent entities deliberately causing new accidents by recreating dangerous situations. Some paranormal researchers believe that the phantom vehicles are operated by the spirits of drivers who died on these roads, eternally reliving their final moments and inadvertently or deliberately causing new victims to share their fate.
Others theorize that the vehicles are not driven by human spirits at all, but are manifestations created by non-human entities that feed on the fear and suffering generated by fatal accidents.
The hanging victims and roadside apparitions. Multiple 13 Bends roads across America share another disturbing characteristic. They were historically used as sites for lynching and other forms of extrajudicial execution. The isolated nature of these roads made them ideal locations for these horrific acts, and the spirits of the victims apparently remained bound to the places where they died violently. Drivers report seeing figures hanging from trees along the roadside, sometimes appearing as fully formed apparitions, complete with the ropes and wooden beams used in their execution. Other times manifesting as shadow figures that sway in winds that aren't blowing. These apparitions typically appear suddenly in vehicle headlights, causing drivers to swerve violently and sometimes crash. The hanging victims seem particularly active during anniversary dates of historical lynchings and executions. Local historians have documented that spikes in accident rates on 13 Bends roads often correlate with these anniversaries, suggesting that the spirits of execution victims may be seeking revenge by causing harm to the living. Some witnesses report that the hanging figures appear to follow vehicles with their eyes or even turn their heads to track passing cars, suggesting consciousness and awareness rather than mere residual haunting. A few drivers have reported that the figures attempted to reach out toward their vehicles, with witnesses describing elongated arms that seemed to stretch impossibly far in attempts to grab or stop passing cars. The crying woman and child spirits. A recurring figure in 13 Bends lore across different states is the crying woman, a female spirit dressed in white who appears on or near the roads, often near water features such as bridges or creek crossings. This apparition has been interpreted as a variation of the Mexican La Llorona legend, adapted to local American contexts. The crying woman typically appears to be searching for something, often identified in local legends as her lost children. She may stand on bridges, wander along the roadside, or even appear suddenly in the middle of the road, causing drivers to stop or swerve. Those who encounter her report hearing heartbreaking sobs and wails that seem to emanate from all directions simultaneously, creating disorientation that can lead to accidents. In some versions of the legend, the crying woman died in an accident on the road while her children were in the vehicle, and she eternally searches for them, unaware that she and they are all dead. In other versions, she deliberately causes accidents, either seeking revenge for her own death or attempting to claim new victims to replace her lost children. Child spirits also feature prominently in 13 Bends encounters, with drivers reporting seeing children playing near the roads at night, standing in the middle of curves or running across the path of oncoming vehicles. These child apparitions appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly, though not before causing drivers to brake or swerve violently in attempts to avoid hitting what appear to be living children. Equipment failure and temporal anomalies. Drivers navigating 13 Bends roads frequently experience sudden and complete failure of their vehicle's electrical systems, often occurring at the most dangerous moments, such as entering sharp curves or crossing narrow bridges. Headlights fail, leaving drivers in complete darkness. Engines die, leaving vehicles stalled in dangerous positions. And electronic devices, including cell phones, cease functioning, leaving drivers stranded without means of calling for help. These electrical failures resolve themselves as mysteriously as they begin, with vehicles returning to normal operation once they've left the 13 bends area, or after sitting disabled for several terrifying minutes. Mechanics who later examine vehicles that experienced these failures find no defects or explanations for the temporary malfunctions, suggesting supernatural rather than mechanical causes. Even more disturbing are reports of temporal anomalies experienced by drivers on 13 bends roads. Multiple witnesses have described trips that seemed to take hours longer than should have been possible given the relatively short distances involved. Others report arriving at their destinations with no memory of the journey and discovering that far more or less time has passed than their watches indicate. Some drivers have reported seeing their surroundings change as they navigate the curves, with modern pavement suddenly appearing as dirt roads, contemporary forests transformed into landscapes from earlier eras, and vehicles that pass them appearing to be from different time periods. These temporal slips typically last only moments, but are profoundly disorienting and have contributed to numerous accidents.
Fatal accident patterns and statistical anomalies. Traffic safety analysts who have studied 13 bends roads note that they have accident and fatality rates far exceeding what would be expected based on their design, traffic volume, and environmental conditions. Even after safety improvements such as guardrails, warning signs, and reduced speed limits, these roads continue to claim lives at rates that defy statistical probability. The accidents often share unusual characteristics that suggest supernatural involvement. Drivers leaving the road at points where steering wheel failure is reported. Vehicles accelerating impossibly quickly before crashes, despite drivers claiming their brakes were applied. And fatal accidents occurring during clear weather under conditions that should have been perfectly safe for experienced drivers. Emergency responders who work these roads report that accident scenes often feel wrong in ways they struggle to articulate. Unusual cold spots at crash sites, even in summer. Feelings of being watched while working on victims, and equipment malfunctions that complicate rescue efforts. Some first responders have reported seeing figures watching accident scenes from the tree line, figures that disappear when directly approached. Medical examiners have noted puzzling aspects in some fatalities from 13 bends roads, including victims showing signs of extreme terror that seems disproportionate to the nature of their accidents, and some bodies displaying injuries or physiological changes that don't match the apparent circumstances of their crashes. The legends and local warnings. Communities near 13 bends roads typically have well-established folklore about the dangers of traveling these routes, particularly after dark. Long-time residents warn visitors to avoid the roads entirely if possible, or if they must use them, to do so only during daylight hours, to never stop within the 13 curves, and to leave immediately if they encounter any unusual phenomena. These warnings are taken seriously by locals who can often recount personal experiences or stories about family members and friends who encountered supernatural phenomena on the roads. The consistency of these accounts across generations suggests that the paranormal activity is ongoing and real rather than merely urban legend or superstition. modern investigation, and continuing danger. Paranormal investigation teams that study 13 Bends roads across America have documented remarkable consistency in the types of phenomena reported, despite the geographical separation of these locations. This consistency suggests either that human psychology creates similar folklore in response to similar road conditions, or that genuine supernatural forces operate according to patterns that manifest similarly in different locations. Modern monitoring equipment has captured compelling evidence at multiple 13 Bends locations. Thermal imaging showing human-shaped heat signatures crossing roads where no people are present. Audio recordings of phantom vehicles approaching and passing investigation sites. And electromagnetic field readings showing massive spikes that correspond temporally with witness reports of supernatural encounters. Today, 13 Bends roads across America continue to claim victims with disturbing regularity. While some have been improved with better lighting, signage, and safety features, the supernatural dangers persist undiminished. The roads serve as reminders that some places become so associated with death and tragedy that they develop a kind of momentum, attracting supernatural activity and creating self-fulfilling prophecies where expectation of danger contributes to continued accidents and fatalities. The 13 Bends phenomenon represents one of the most geographically widespread patterns in American paranormal research, suggesting that similar conditions, isolated roads with dangerous curves, histories of violent death, and the symbolic resonance of the unlucky number 13 can create similar supernatural manifestations across vast distances. These roads remain among America's most dangerous haunted locations, where the combination of physical danger and supernatural malevolence create perfect storms of deadly encounters that continue to claim new victims year after year.
Story 6. Clinton Road, New Jersey's most dangerous haunted road. In the rural northwestern corner of New Jersey, winding through the forests of West Milford Township, runs a 10-mile stretch of crumbling asphalt that has earned the terrifying distinction as America's most haunted road. Clinton Road, a narrow 2-lane route that connects Route 23 to Upper Greenwood Lake, has been the site of so many reported supernatural encounters, unexplained deaths, and terrifying incidents that it has become legendary among paranormal enthusiasts while remaining a source of genuine fear for local residents. The road takes its name from the Clinton Furnace, an iron smelting operation that operated in the area during the 1800s and employed dozens of workers in the dangerous business of extracting and processing iron ore from the surrounding hills. The furnace and its associated buildings have long since crumbled into ruins, but the road that once served the industrial complex remains, cutting through some of the most isolated and forbidding terrain in New Jersey. What makes Clinton Road particularly dangerous is not just the volume of supernatural activity reported there, but the malevolent nature of the entities that seem to haunt it. Unlike many haunted locations where spirits appear merely to be residual presences replaying past events, the supernatural forces on Clinton Road demonstrate intelligence and hostility and an apparent desire to harm or kill those who venture onto the cursed road. The Ghost Boy of the Bridge. The most famous legend associated with Clinton Road involves the spirit of a young boy who allegedly drowned in the waters beneath a small bridge that crosses a tributary stream near the road's midpoint. According to local folklore, if you stand on this bridge at midnight and drop a coin into the water below, the ghost boy will throw it at you. A supernatural interaction that thousands of visitors have attempted to experience over the decades. Those who have successfully completed the ritual report varying levels of supernatural activity. Some describe simply having their coin returned, sometimes with startling force and accuracy that suggests an intelligent thrower rather than random chance. Others report seeing the apparition of a young boy standing in the water below, his face pale and his expression either mournful or menacing, depending on the witness's account. More disturbing are reports from visitors who claim the ghost boy didn't simply return their coins, but followed them after the interaction, appearing in rear-view mirrors as they drove away, manifesting in their homes days later, or causing recurring nightmares featuring a drowned child seeking help or revenge. Several people who participated in the coin ritual have reported developing unexplained fears of water or experiencing near-drowning incidents in the months following their Clinton Road visit. The identity of the ghost boy remains a matter of speculation. Some researchers claim he was a child who drowned accidentally while swimming in the creek during the 1960s, while others suggest he may have been murdered and his body dumped in the water. Still others believe the ghost boy may not be human at all, but rather a malevolent entity that has taken the form of a child to lure sympathetic humans into dangerous interactions.
The Phantom Truck and Fatal Games. One of the most dangerous supernatural phenomena on Clinton Road involves encounters with a phantom pickup truck that appears behind vehicles traveling the road at night. This ghostly truck pursues living drivers at high speeds, tailgating aggressively with its high beams on, apparently trying to force them off the road or into oncoming traffic. Witnesses describe the truck as appearing completely solid and real, often identifying it as a specific make and model from the 1970s or 1980s. The truck pursues victims for miles, maintaining impossible speeds around the road's sharp curves, and somehow keeping pace even when drivers accelerate to dangerous velocities trying to escape. The phantom truck encounters typically end in one of three ways. The truck suddenly disappears while still visible in the rearview mirror, simply ceasing to exist between one glance and the next. The truck forces the pursued vehicle off the road, resulting in crashes that have caused serious injuries and several deaths. Or, the living driver manages to escape onto a main highway, at which point the phantom truck vanishes or refuses to follow beyond Clinton Road's boundaries. Several fatal accidents on Clinton Road have been attributed by survivors or witnesses to the phantom truck, though official accident reports typically cite excessive speed or driver error as the causes. Some researchers believe the truck is driven by the ghost of an aggressive driver who died in an accident on the road and who now eternally repeats his dangerous driving behavior, inadvertently or deliberately causing new victims to share his fate. The Druidic Temple and Cult Activity. Deep in the woods near Clinton Road stand the ruins of what locals call the Druidic Temple, a series of stone structures whose origin and purpose remain subjects of speculation and legend. The ruins consist of several stone pillars and flat surfaces arranged in patterns that suggest deliberate design,
though whether they were built by actual druids, represent remnants of the iron furnace operation, or were constructed more recently by occult practitioners remains unclear. What is clear is that the ruins have been used for occult rituals, animal sacrifices, and possibly worse. Law enforcement has investigated multiple incidents at the site, discovering evidence of ceremonial activities, animal remains arranged in ritualistic patterns, and symbols associated with various dark magical traditions. Several local residents have reported encountering robed figures conducting ceremonies near the ruins, particularly during dates associated with pagan holidays and astronomical events. The area around the Druidic temple has been the site of several disappearances and at least one confirmed murder. In 1983, the body of a man who had been murdered was discovered in the woods near the temple, a case that remains officially unsolved despite extensive investigation. Some researchers believe the murder was connected to occult activity, though law enforcement has never confirmed this theory. Visitors to the temple ruins report overwhelming feelings of dread, the sensation of being watched by hostile presences, and physical symptoms including dizziness, nausea, and difficulty breathing. Some people who have approached the ruins claim to have been physically pushed or struck by invisible forces, and several have reported developing unexplained illnesses following their visits. Paranormal investigators who have studied the temple area believe it may serve as a focal point for supernatural activity along Clinton Road, possibly drawing malevolent entities to the region or serving as a portal through which such entities can enter our physical reality. The concentration of reported phenomena near the ruins suggests that occult activities performed there may have created conditions favorable to supernatural manifestations.
The Hellhounds and Cryptid Creatures. Among the most terrifying encounters on Clinton Road are reports of massive, aggressive dog-like creatures that some witnesses describe as hellhounds. Supernatural canines of enormous size with glowing red eyes and behavior that suggests malevolent intelligence rather than normal animal instinct. These creatures are reported to chase vehicles, keeping pace with cars traveling at speeds that would be impossible for normal animals. Witnesses describe dogs the size of ponies, with black or dark gray fur, eyes that glow red or yellow in headlight beams, and an ability to appear and disappear suddenly, as if materializing from and vanishing back into thin air. The hellhounds appear most frequently in the most isolated stretches of Clinton Road, often emerging from the forest to pursue vehicles before abandoning the chase and disappearing back into the darkness. Some witnesses report that the creatures appear to be herding drivers toward specific locations, suggesting coordinated behavior and intelligence far beyond normal canine capacity. In addition to the hellhounds, Clinton Road has been associated with sightings of other cryptid creatures, including large primates resembling Bigfoot that cross the road on two legs, sometimes stopping to stare at vehicles before vanishing into the forest. Enormous birds with wingspans exceeding 15 feet, described as resembling prehistoric pterosaurs and flying silently over the road at night. Unidentifiable creatures that witnesses struggle to describe, often reporting that they possessed characteristics of multiple animals or appeared to change shape as they were observed.
The variety of cryptid reports from Clinton Road suggests that the area may serve as a window or portal where entities from other dimensions can temporarily manifest in our physical reality.
The time distortions and missing time. One of the most disturbing aspects of Clinton Road encounters involve temporal anomalies, experiences where time seems to move differently than it should, with trips along the 10-mile road taking hours when they should require only minutes, or conversely, with drivers arriving at their destinations with no memory of the journey and discovering that time has passed differently than their watches indicate. Some drivers report becoming lost on Clinton Road despite it being essentially a straight route with few intersections, finding themselves driving in circles or unable to locate the road's exits despite extensive searching. These disorientation episodes can last for hours, with drivers eventually finding themselves back at their starting point or emerging onto familiar roads with no clear memory of how they escaped Clinton Road's confines. Even more unsettling are reports of drivers who enter Clinton Road and emerge hours later with gaps in their memory, sometimes showing physical evidence of having stopped or exited their vehicles, muddy shoes, scratches or bruises, or items in their cars that weren't there before, despite having no recollection of doing so. These missing time episodes share characteristics with alien abduction reports, leading some researchers to speculate that UFO activity may be connected to Clinton Road's supernatural phenomena. Others believe the temporal distortions are caused by the same forces responsible for the other paranormal activity, suggesting that malevolent entities may be capable of manipulating human perception of time and memory. Law enforcement and official response. Clinton Road's reputation has made it a destination for thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and occult practitioners, creating law enforcement challenges for West Milford Township Police. Officers patrol the road regularly, citing trespassing laws and safety concerns as justifications for moving people along, but they privately acknowledge that something genuinely strange occurs on Clinton Road. Police officers who work the Clinton Road detail report their own unsettling experiences. Vehicles that disappear between radio check-ins, calls about disturbances at specific locations that officers cannot locate, and personal encounters with phenomena they cannot explain. Some officers refuse night patrols on Clinton Road, claiming that the reported supernatural activity makes it impossible for them to do their jobs effectively.